Have you ever felt yourself doomsday scrolling on social media, feeling your brain rot in real time? May I even say feeling dumber? Well, you're definitely not alone in that feeling. I have also found myself just spending countless hours doomsday scrolling, looking at really nothing in particular, spending all night on TikTok. And my IQ definitely cliff diving. But I have a plan to beat the brain rot and become disgustingly educated and honestly an interesting dinner party guest. My name is Melissa, and the solution to this problem is personal curriculum. If you're not familiar with this trend on TikTok, let me explain. The idea behind personal curriculum is to become your own professor. Think McGonagall. By creating a coursework or topic of interest. In today's video, I'm going to show you my personal curriculum and how I'm structuring it. I'm doing it based off of season, so winter, spring, summer, and fall. I'm going to treat them like 12-week long college courses, and the reason for that is it allows me a longer time to spend in each study. You don't have to do it that way. You could do it in a month, a week, however you want. The great thing about personal curriculum is it's personal, so it means you do it however you like. In my 12-week personal curriculum, I will be covering 3 core subjects, which are mythology, creative writing, and Gothic literature. I plan to document the entire 12-week with weekly videos going over what I'm learning, what I'm studying, treating this like a personal discussion board like the old Blackboard college days. If you found yourself interested in this trend or wanting to learn more, make sure to stick around. This may inspire you to create your own. This video will be broken up into parts, so you can watch the whole thing or jump ahead to what interests you. Honestly, whatever floats your boat. You may be wondering why I'm going to torture myself with a whole semester worth of learning. That is a fair question. For one, I love learning, and I really do miss college, just like not the cost or taking the boring classes that I had literally no interest in. I think most of us feel this insatiable boredom where nothing really sparks joy anymore, and there's actually a ton of data to back that up. We are experiencing a major literacy crisis in this country, with most people on average only reading 4 books per year. Now, this is not to shame anybody on how much you read, but to reevaluate how much time we spend on social media. If you're spending 20 plus hours a week just scrolling, but only reading 4 times a year, your vocabulary is going down. You're actually killing your brain. And this is a no judgment zone because I too found myself doing that, even in addition to reading, but I really wasn't reading as much as I could, and I wasn't reading things that were really forcing me to think. Brain rot not only leads to being undereducated, but it leads to depression, anxiety, comparison, and an undereducated population is a controllable population, and I'm going to leave that there. I wanted to give myself a structured and thoughtful way to explore the topics that interest me. As I mentioned earlier, I have 3 core subjects. So that's mythology, Gothic literature, and creative writing. Within my 3 core subjects, my 5 modules are the Las Contessas of the 17th century, magic in the Middle Ages, taking Brandon Sanderson's writing course, Gothic literature and modern media, and women authors of 19th century and Gothic literature. I also added some really fun side quests. Think of these as your mindless activities. So if I maybe don't want to study, but I don't want to spend time scrolling on social media, side quest. Which for me is building Legos and embroidery, but more on that later. I even added really fun field trips, think Miss Frizzle. I'll be posting a weekly video that will be documenting the week of study. What I learned, what I struggled with, what I liked, what I didn't like, if I'm having any struggles. I will also be posting my discussion prompt and questions. I thought this would be a really fun way, if anyone is interested in doing this with me, that we can kind of have a discussion every Thursday, like a traditional class where you had to post your discussion responses. I feel like it'll be a really fun time. I also created a full Notion database. Yes, a full database. I am type A. I mean, like very type A perfectionist to a deficit, to where sometimes I don't do things because I don't feel like it's going to be perfect or look the way that I want it to. I thought that having a database similar to Blackboard would help keep me accountable, because honestly at this point I need something that's going to keep me on track and make sure I don't fall off course and just find myself scrolling again. And I'm a competitive person, so for me to have like a list of things that I need to cross off, it just works for my brain. You do not have to do it this way, but I will be sharing my entire database because it's really cool. I created some really fun templates, calendars, all of my prompts and my syllabuses that I made are all within this database. If you are interested in that, let me know and I will definitely post a whole video on how I made that. Let's dive into my first core subject, which is Gothic literature. I am so excited to study on Gothic literature. I'm a spooky girl through and through, and it just really feels like the perfect time to do Gothic literature in the winter. There are also a ton of classics in Gothic literature that I haven't read in about 20 years since I read them in high school that I really want to rediscover and read as an adult versus as a teenager, because I feel like I'm going to pick up on different themes and meanings that I didn't really pick up on when I was younger. The idea behind choosing Gothic literature was to really understand the classics and also the authors who helped create the genre and what it stood for at that time. I'm also going to be diving into how it's represented in modern media today. In pop culture, we have an obsession with monsters, a whole genre of writing around monster romances. I'm also very curious how we went from Dracula to Edward Cullen. I feel like that's quite a jump, and I'm very interested in understanding how we went from A to B. They created 2 modules, Gothic Classics in Modern Media, and then the Women Authors of the 19th Century. A theme you will notice is I do a lot of focus on women in history, and the reason I do that is because so often women's stories are either untold or diminished to uplift their male counterparts, and I just have a really hard time with that, and I want to focus and understand and spread awareness and light on the women who helped create so much of what we know today, and they had so much influence, and it really goes undernoticed and undervalued. And for reference, I have a master's in history. My thesis and dissertation was on Anne Boleyn and her role in England's Reformation, which is a mouthful, I know. I've long been focused on bringing a light to women in history because history loves to put women in 2 categories. They are either a woman and a mother or a lustful temptation, and there's like no in between ever. Specifically with Anne Boleyn, but that's a whole other video for a whole other time. So I wanted to focus on the women who helped coin Gothic literature and what it is today. And I will say Mary Shelley definitely inspired that because she is actually coined the mother of science fiction, meaning she created the entire genre. I feel like she is better known than some of the others, but there are others also in that same genre who are writing at the same time as Mary Shelley. But Mary Shelley is the GOAT because she was 18. 18 when she wrote Frankenstein. Her 18 and my 18 are vastly different. I will say that. I plan to read the 4 classics. We are going to be reading Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and then we're also going to be reading Zopholia by Charlotte Darcy. A lot of Charlottes and a lot of Brontes. They didn't have a lot of name variation. That's fine. My weekly assignments will include a mix of weekly discussion prompts, short essays, and then a final essay at the end of the module. I also added in a field trip because why not? And that's like the one thing I miss about schools, when you would get to go on field trips. Like, so fun. And I actually have some friends who are interested in going with me on these field trips, so it's going to be really fun to like take them along with me. We're also going to be going on a field trip for this module. Now, it's not going to be as like field trippy as some of the other field trips we're going to be doing in other modules, but we will discuss that later. But we're going to go see Wuthering Heights, that is starring Margaret Robbie and Jacob, I never can say his last name right, Eloridi, I think. Him, the really hot one from Euphoria. And he just did Frankenstein. We're also going to rewatch Frankenstein. I have been specifically waiting to watch that movie until I reread it, knowing that this was going to be in my winter curriculum, and I cannot wait to watch it. I've heard amazing things, and I've already seen some of the costumes, and I love Guillermo del Toro, so I think it's going to be great. So that's going to be the field trips for this particular module. And quick disclaimer, if you decide to follow along with me on my course, please do not feel like you have to buy all of these books. Utilize the library. They even have some from Libby that you can get on your e-reader or on your Kindle. Whatever you would like to do, you do not have to buy them. I am buying them because I like to annotate, and as you can see, I have a library. So I just love books. I will spend money on books. I keep books. I take them from place to place anytime I move. This is actually a new space for me that I just moved into, and it took me a while to get all these books. I think I have a total of 500, and once I hit 1,000, it's an official library. So that's an important thing for me and how I spend my money, but to do this, it can be $0. You do not have to go on field trips. You don't have to spend any money. You can utilize the library. Like I said, there's just a ton of other free resources that you can use. And I just want to put that disclaimer out there because I don't want anyone to feel like they can't do personal curriculum because there's like an entry level of cost that they have to be able to do it. Now, Gothic classics in modern media. Like I mentioned before, how we went from Dracula to Edward Cullen. Like, think about that gap. Dracula was this feared creature that like sucked on your blood. He was undead. You avoided him. You had garlic and steaks and all of these things. To a sparkly vampire who we all, and if you say you didn't back in the early 2000s, like love and be obsessed with Edward Cullen, you're a liar. I mean, unless you liked Jacob, because then that's fair. But you were obsessed with one of the two. Also, werewolf. Like, just, it's insane to think of how they are represented in modern media. We have a whole monster genre now in books that I read. And sometimes I question what I'm reading. I feel like I need to set some boundaries and borders because I've read some weird things, like some weird things. Some monster books that I'm like, I don't know how I'm reading this. We're going to understand a little bit more of the modern media representation of these Gothic classics. For balance, we're going to read some of the classics, and then we're also going to read some of the current obsessions in the Gothic literature genre. We are going to be reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That is by Robert Louis. We're going to read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and then the classic Dracula by Bram Stoker. We are also going to be reading, for the modern reinterpretations, I'm going to be rereading Twilight. I've read it a million times, but I'm going to read it specifically with the lens of trying to compare Edward and freaking Dracula. I'm so excited to see, like, to really think about it. We're going to see the differences between the two. We're also going to be reading The 13th Tale. I have read this book before. It is a Gothic novel. I really enjoyed it. It's by Diana Setterfield. I remember really enjoying this. I think I read this like 15 years ago. So it's been a while since I've read it, so I'm curious to see how it holds up over time and as like my reading journey has kind of developed. But I think this is going to be a great one. We're also going to be reading London Labor. It was current newspaper clippings of that time, and honestly, their version of like kind of what Gothic literature was and how it was influencing the people of that day. I think it'll be a really fun addition to actually reading so many novels. And fun fact, on Dracula, I've actually been to Transylvania and I went to go see Dracula's castle, and he was actually based on Vlad the Impaler. I wish I could go back as the field trip to go back to Transylvania. I can't, but I think it would be fun. Just a really fun little nibbit in there if you are interested in any vampire lore. That is a great place to go. And because this is fun and it is my personal curriculum, I am pairing every single classic literature that we're reading, and even our modern one, with the film adaptation. All of these have film adaptations, so we're going to also watch those and just see how the novel kind of compares to the movie. My assignments are going to be the same as with the 19th century women. It's just going to be a mixture of discussion prompts, short essays, and then also a final essay at the end. Then my field trip for this one, I am super excited. I do have a couple people who want to go with me. We're going to be going to the Queen Mary, which is in Long Beach, California. It's known for being like haunted, and I feel like the epitome of spooky. So I kind of feel like I have to add it in for Gothic. And fun fact, my mom actually had her prom at the Queen Mary. I just feel like it's going to go really well with like all of the books that we're going to be reading. Moving along to creative writing, which is my second core subject. In this one, we are just doing one module. I've been writing a book for years. And again, this is my type A perfectionist that I have not been able to like fully move forward because I get stuck in the weeds. I decided to take Brandon Sanderson's writing course. He has it online in his like YouTube playlist. You can find it. He has one for every single year. I've heard amazing things about this course, and the fact that he does this for free. There is 16 videos. It is parceled out over 12 weeks. Some of the videos are like 2 in 1 week, and they're about an hour long each. I'm going to take one each week, and I actually have a friend who's going to be joining me on this. We will watch the video of the week, and then on Thursday we will discuss it, like what we think, how it would apply to our writing style, into the novels that we are individually working on, and how we kind of want to maybe change things or reevaluate certain things. And then the goal and hope is that this will help move me forward in the writing process. And then as I'm learning more, after this module is over, maybe my module will be completely on my own writing, and now I'll have something to look back on and compare it to. The assignments here will be daily journaling, just like thinking about my book, thinking about my writing process. I'm going to give myself like no pressure until after the module is over to just really take in what I'm learning and do like little prompts. There'll be a discussion every week, like I mentioned, that we will do, me and my friend, and discuss, and that I will definitely post here. I'm just really hoping this gets me into the habit of writing daily, because I feel like journaling is a great way to help your creative writing process. So I will be doing both. So like just journaling, and then the hope is to continue journaling after this daily, and then also add in daily writing, even if it's like 30 minutes. Again, this is about reassigning time. Like when I looked at how much time I spent on my phone, just on social media, like such a waste of your time. So I'm really hoping to replace those bad habits with journaling, meditation, writing, the personal curriculum. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how my time kind of shifts from 20 something hours a week on social media, like at night, on the weekends, whatever, to actually learning and like increasing my overall knowledge. I feel like I'm going to be a great dinner guest now. Definitely invite me over. Just kidding. Now the field trip for this one, I am in Southern California. There is this beautiful library in Huntington Beach. They actually have like little exhibits that they host yearly. They actually have one stories from the library from Bronte to Butler. And I'm really excited because it's actually running during the time I'm doing this winter curriculum. So I'm going to go and visit. I'm sure I'll have some friends who want to join me. I'm very excited. Bronte actually kind of pairs them with the 19th century women, but also just that they're doing a whole thing on stories and writing. I feel like that's going to pair really nicely with the creative writing course. Now, my field trips will be once a month. So some of them will be in between, not necessarily at the end of the study. It's just something I'm like adding into my weekly rotation. My third and final core subject of this personal curriculum is mythology. Your girl is a nerd. I mean, I've been a nerd for years. I love fantasy, like so much. I've also been obsessed with like the origin, like where does magic come from? Like when do we first kind of see it in history? And like also how it has changed through time and how we relate it to women and men. So like women have not had much luck if they were considered magical. So say like a plague hits or a bad crop happens and a woman happened to walk by the day before, they're like, witch, burn her at the stake. It makes no sense. But men through history who have been associated with magic are almost at like this hero status, or they are connected to heroes. Think Merlin and King Arthur, right? The Arthurian legends. Or Nostradamus, like he was sought out to like give wisdom and advice and future, like his future knowledge of what was going to happen. But if a woman would have ever been like, oh, I think I know what's going to happen, like I have magical powers, they literally would kill her. Make that make sense. We're going to dive more into that. And this also didn't just apply to men who were like held to this status, but also to men authors. Think, when you think about magic or fantasy, you don't often think of women authors, right? You think the Brother Grimms, Charles Perrault, you think a Tolkien, and even in modern time, you're probably going to think more of a Sanderson or of a George R. Martin than you are of women. But did you know that fairy tales actually were created by women? You probably didn't. Cue the Lost Contessas of the 17th century. This is going to be my first module. The Lost Contessas were this group of French women who actually were credited to creating the fairy tale genre. There's one in particular, Madame de Aulnay, who coined the word fairy tales, which is conte de fées. That means fairy tales in French. She did this in 1697. The Brother Grimms did not publish their first novel until 1812, which is literally 115 years in between. And Madame de Aulnay is virtually unknown. Very few people know who she is. There were also other women authors of the time who wrote and are considered a part of this Las Contessas. And my French is not great, so I'm going to put their names here so I don't butcher them and embarrass myself. I will work. This is going to be something I add to my personal curriculum. Working on my enunciation and proper pronunciation, because I'm a person who, when I read like a fantasy book, I just like the name of the city just becomes no, you know? And like in my mind, I kind of know what it is, but like saying it out loud. I was a hooked on phonics kid, okay? In this course, I will be reading the male versions of these fairy tales, right? Massive. I will not be reading all of these. I'm going to pick a couple of stories and read them. So we've got the Brother Grimms, and then we've got Hans Christian Andersen. Now, Hans Christian Andersen, he is known for writing like The Little Mermaid, Thumbelina. So like you may not know the name, but you would definitely know the fairy tales if you heard them. And then obviously Brother Grimm, Cinderella, Snow White, that whole list of Disneyfied fairy tales. It was actually really hard to find the written version, or like the printed version, I should say, of the women fairy tales for some reason. Also to find the translated version because they are from French to English. These are the ones I'm going to be reading over the 12-week course that are going to kind of like match up to the male version. I'm also going to be reading Women in the Fairy Tale Resistance. This is by Jane Harrington, and this is actually something that kind of got me started on my journey of looking into the women authors of fairy tales. So I have not fully read this. I've read a little bit, so I'm very excited to dive into this. So this will be like, I think, my textbook, right? While this is like the actual source material in this module. I will be doing a comprehensive review of the male fairy tales versus the female ones, and just like kind of trying to find the similarities, the differences, and also why the female fairy tale stories haven't really stood the test of time the way like a Brother Grimm's has, and why we don't know as much about them. I've heard that they're very like independent and strong women, so that may have been part of it, as well as they didn't want that kind of narrative, right, being put out there that women could do it on their own versus, oh, a woman is saved by a man. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. I think this is one of the ones I'm most excited about, just because fairy tales are such a like integral part of society. My second module is Magic in the Middle Ages. This is actually a Coursier course. So if you're not familiar with Coursier, they offer free courses. They're usually 5 to 8 modules long. So you can think of that as like a module a week. If you would like, you could do it all at one time. Honestly, it's self-paced, so when you download the course, you're given all of the material at once. So it's kind of up to you on how you want to do it, whether you want to do it all at once, if you want to space it out, maybe one every other week. Magic in Middle Ages is only a 5-week module course, so I'm only going to do that over 5 weeks, which I think is really good because there's no reading involved with that. They're all videos, because some of these courses I'm doing, are a lot of reading. So I didn't want to overwhelm myself with too much that wasn't fun for me, or I felt like I was falling behind. Just because, again, when I like write something down and I say it's due on this day, it's due on that day. And so I'll have a hard time like not actually doing it. Then for the assignments that I gave myself, I'm just going to do discussion prompts on basically what I watched and what I learned over that week. My hope and thought process with doing a Coursier course is it's something that I want to see if I have interest in and maybe want to create a full 12-week course around. Or if I'm like, oh, I thought I was interested in that and I actually am not, then no harm, no foul. I looked into it, I followed along, and then I maybe move on to something different. Now for the fun, the side quests. Again, think of these as mindless activities. These are meant to be very low entry, not a lot of work. You're just kind of like adding it into what you're already doing. So for me, that is going to be building Legos and embroidery. You're probably going like, why are you building Legos? If you can see right here, I have a ton of unbuilt Legos. I think it's a total of 35. So I was moving and I like couldn't build them where I was. I was buying them because if you know anything about Legos, like they retire or they'll sell out. And I love Harry Potter, as you can see. And so I have, I think 20 or 25 of them are Harry Potter Legos specifically. Like this one right here is the Burrow. So I feel like it's going to be so much fun to just come and sit in my space, build my Lego, maybe watch the movies. And again, this is just another way to spend my time without like A, spending money, and B, just getting on my phone and like, scrolling. Like I'm going to be doing something useful. And I feel like it's also really fun. I love building Legos. Now the embroidery, I want to learn useful skills. I can't sew. I crocheted, God, maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago with my great grandma, like when we would go to Utah to visit her, that was the one thing me and her would do together is crochet. And I remember I tried to make my mom a blanket and it became a really long square scarf. But I don't remember how I did it, and she's no longer with us, so I can't even call and ask for her to show me how to crochet. So I really want to learn like embroidery. I'd love to learn sewing. I love cosplay, but I always buy pieces, and I would love to know how to make my own pieces. Like I saw someone just make the Frankenstein dress from the new 2025 version. It was stunning, and I'm like, I wish I could just see something and be like, let me whip that together. Because I definitely cannot. So that's going to be my fun little side quest that I'm going to be doing over this 12 weeks. And I'm also leaving this really loose. So if I get bored with embroidery or overwhelmed, or like maybe that's something I need to go somewhere and take a class on, then I'll swap it out for something else. And again, side quests are not mandatory. It's just for me adding in some fun. Or if you're like, I really don't want to do any like hardcore study, just do all side quests. The whole point is just to get off your phone and for us to advance our knowledge. I do think adding in some sort of like higher level, and I say that loosely, higher level course, even as simple as I'm going to read a classic book, anything like that, or I'm going to evaluate the Sarah J. Maas universe. I just think anything that kind of forces you to think, that's all we're trying to do. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did have some Notion templates, so I'm going to add that to the screen now, so if anyone is interested in what that looks like. I added in homepage for each core subject, a syllabus, a book tracker, an assignment like / calendar hub, and then a semester hub. Each of these little hubs, honestly, my fall curriculum was learning Notion. Your girl feels so well-versed in Notion now. Like, I've learned so much spending time just creating these, like, little modules and databases and all of that. I use Canva for all of my syllabus. And so my goal now is that I have this, like, robust little hub and database for all of my future core subjects and classes that I will do. The 13th week in between each module, in between each semester, I will spend rebuilding out whatever the new core or module is, or if I'm going to work in a new core subject. That's how I'm working it out, and that's why I spent so long building everything, was because I wanted it to be something that I could use for years to come. But if you've made it to the end of this video, you're a real one. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited. I think this is going to be so much fun. Such a great way to beat this attack on education and learning that we're seeing in today, because your girl's a feminist and this is the best way to beat the patriarch. And honestly, just cheers to learning for the sake of learning. And I will see you next week for week 1.